Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the CRKT Cottidae. Alright, first off though, in the name of full disclosure, I want to let you know that this guy was sent to me by CRKT. They reached out to me, said, hey Nick, anything from our new catalog you're interested in? I said, yeah, there's this, and this was one of the thises, right? But they know, as always, that I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. It might be a gem, might be junk. They still send it along. Nonetheless, we have to assume that this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my best not to let that affect the nature or quality of my review. Next thing, let's do some size comparison real quick. Here it is again. To start with the Spidicodelica. So what we see here is this actually isn't a particularly large knife. Here it is with the Ontario Rat number 2. And of course the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Yeah, this is a reasonably small little knife. We see here it's actually smaller in the handle than the Rat 2, but it's a little bit smaller in the blade as well. And in sharpened length, it is way smaller. So there's that. And then I actually want to compare it to two other knives from CRKT, one of which is the CRKT Homefront. This happens to be their 25th anniversary edition. But this is a first-generation FieldStrip pocket knife. And then here it is against the CRKT... Oh, come on. It says on the back, Bonafide. That's right. That's always helpful, right? This is the other FieldStrip version 2 knife that has debuted out in the world there, and I'll be making the comparison to that guy as we are going throughout. Next thing, this is a Voxney's design. Jesper Voxney's. Really well-known designer. Quite good at what he does, right? This has the FieldStrip 2. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then finally, what the heck is a Cottidae? Well, I looked it up, and it's a type of fish, actually. It's known in English, I guess, as the sculpin's fish. Honestly, looking the name up made me less informed than before, so I don't know why the heck this is named after that fish. It doesn't look much like it, but something's fishy about it. So at the very least, let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting pocket knife. To start with, on the good side, this guy is actually quite small, and that's going to be very nice. This is something that will fit very nicely, perhaps in the key pocket of your pants there. This is a small little knife, and for a lot of people, that's going to be interesting, and legally speaking, it's going to be interesting for a lot of folks too. Let me grab my ruler right quick here, and I'll give you the deets, so to speak. That is, of course, Zuma for the details. Maybe that's more millennial, I don't know, whatever. But we are just slightly over 2.5 inches here. We are under 7 centimeters, and if we're thinking sharpened blade length, we are looking here a little bit under 6 centimeters, and I think that might actually be a relevant line here. So there is that. Next thing, ergos on this guy. If you look at the knife from afar, it's a little bricky. Let's be real here. But in practice, actually, the ergos are pretty okay. The clip is positioned well so that it's not really digging into your hands. Your finger goes quite luxuriously in this big old freaking finger choil here. And it fits in pretty well. I gotta say, this locks into the hand nicely, and it doesn't particularly feel bad in any way. Even though it's very blocky, it doesn't have any real issue there. And so I gotta say, I do appreciate that. Next thing, this guy is fully ambidextrous in terms of the clip. We can swap this little guy around here and move it to the other side. And given the fact that this is a liner lock knife, fundamentally the way you unlock it is by moving this guy to the side. This is a big old red herring we'll talk about in a bit here. But this guy is going to be pretty lefty friendly, which 10% of my viewers are going to love. Next thing, oh wait, I already covered that. Next thing, the blade on this guy is actually pretty nice. It's a little on the thick side, certainly, but the thing that is amazing about this is D2. Did you hear that? Yeah, that was a chorus of angels erupting. Day 2 at CRKT, finally. The reason I am blown away by that is not because D2 is a new steel or anything like that. It's just that CRKT has been a little behind those curves for a little while now. And to see them do a knife in D2 is absolutely a joy. It's a steel that is, absolutely not top of the pile, but at the same time, you know what? For a more budgety price point, can absolutely work fine. It is a steel that is, by and large, good to go for everyday carry. So I appreciate that very, very much. It's also relatively thin behind the edge. It's not the thinnest thing ever, but at the same time, it's pretty solid, right? And it's just a very nice sized blade, and it feels good in the hand with a nice shape, a little belly, I really do like the blade on this guy. So to me, at least, all of that is the good, is that it's got a very nice blade to it. It's got an ambidextrous clip. The ergos is surprisingly okay, and it is nice and small. On the great side to me is one simple thing, and it's right on the side of it. That is the FieldStrip 2. I'm going to call this Homestrip because I'm familiar with it from the home front, but it is FieldStrip. So what does that mean? Well, to take this knife apart, you're going to see there's this screw here, there's this screw here, there's this screw here. You don't need any of it. Instead, what you do is you take this button, you move it up this way, and then you push like this, and the knife is apart. Inside the knife here, we're going to see that there is really not a whole lot going on. There is a set of bearings, and those bearings, by the way, are not going anywhere. They have crimped a little piece of, basically tube around them such that these bearings are actually not able to, they're able to rotate, but they're not able to move. They're not able to fall out. So I could wash this guy off in a river and have absolutely no trouble with the bearings coming out, right? The liners themselves are there. The stop pin is fixed in place. All of the hardware is there. The backspace is not going anywhere. This guy is completely ready. I could just toss this in a freaking lake, pull it back out, put it back together, and then to put it back together, all you need to do is, well, stack the pieces up, make sure they look roughly good, and then do that, and the knife is put back together. This is cool. Is this going to be crucial for everybody? No, not necessarily, but especially relative to the first generation of of FieldStrip technology, which is this guy on the home front, where you had to turn a little thing in the back there, and then you had to shift this guy up, shift these guys open, that is, turn this lever, basically. Let me do that right quick here. And then the whole knife comes apart, but hiding underneath there, unfortunately, were Teflon washers, which are just by and large not all that interesting in terms of the action there. They tend to produce a much less snappy, much less, frankly, enjoyable action. So compared to the FieldStrip Gen 1, this is a revelation. I absolutely freaking love it. Not that the first gen was difficult to use or anything like that, but oh boy, is this an improvement. The other thing I gotta highlight real quick is that this guy has no play in either direction. You can still adjust the pivot right. It's actually a really cool system. And I'll show you how it kind of works in brief here, just by taking this off. Right now, you got a hole here and a hole here, and here's an idiot in a Batman mask. If I go ahead and I move this little switch down, what we're going to see is that inside those holes, two little collars have popped out, here and here. Right? So those little collars engage with the grooves on the very top of this guy and then hold the whole knife together. So I take this, I push it back into position, put that down, and then by pulling this back and putting it down, I've engaged those collars and the knife is held shut. This is great. This is a really, really good idea, and it is a version of FieldStrip, which I already like, that is just strictly better. This is really, really cool, right? And so if you are a person who lives in gritty environments, if you are a person who works on the freaking maple syrup fields or something like that, such that your knife is regularly getting doused in sticky liquids that you need to clean out, if you are a person just who likes taking apart their knives but doesn't like spending a whole lot of time and doesn't want to carry tools, this is a revelation. Some say it's a solution in search of a problem, but by God, I think it's really cool. And so to me, what's great about this knife 100% is FieldStrip 2. That is a great technology. On the bad side, price is up there a little bit, right? This is $90, but the thing is, it's also D2, and the FieldStrip 2 thing is really good, so I'm going to give them a pass. If this were just a liner lock with nothing, none of the other stuff, not so much, but they've done enough work here. I'm gonna let that one go, right? Next thing, the choil length on this guy is a little weird, right? They are assuming that you have, this was made for the freaking, like the mountain from freaking Game of Thrones or whatever, right? This is a big person thing of choil here. And for somebody with relatively small hands, I end up, well, there's a bit of a hot dog down a hallway feeling going on here. Is it the end of the world? Absolutely not, but it's a little bit strange. My only thinking that might be, that might make this make sense is maybe that there is there might be a law someplace that says, you need to be under 6 centimeters of sharpened length. And in that case, that might make sense. But otherwise, it's just kind of weird, right? Who knows? Next thing, the balance on this guy is a little bit on the further back side. It's someplace about here. And given that most people are going to be gripping this up front where you kind of need it, especially if you want to get a full 4-finger grip on this guy, it's a little far back. Is it the end of the world? No, but it's a thing. Next thing, the blade stock on this guy is relatively thick, right? Smaller knives like this, I think in many ways, tend to cut a little bit better when you've got relatively thin blade stock, but they've done a decent enough job grinding it down. It's not the end of any worlds. Next thing, unfortunately, this knife is very bricky. The aesthetics of it are just like, okay, now finish rounding it. And I kind of get it, right? They've got a lot of mechanism up inside here. They need to have relatively thick liners, and then by result, if the blade being thick helps with the balance, I kind of get it, right? But it ends up feeling very bricky in the hand, right? It's not, the ergonomics aren't bad, but it's not something that's, svelte in any particular way. It's a design that's sort of like functional, but it's not like, oh, wow, that's kind of attractive. effective, right? And so to me at least, the brickiness is definitely a thing. And then finally on the bad side, and the thing I probably like least about this guy is the handle finish. The handle finish on this looks like plastic. This is not plastic. At least I sure don't think it's a plastic. If it's a plastic, it's got me fooled. But I think it's actually, this feels a lot like an aluminum of some variety. But they've done what appears to either be a heavy blasting or maybe some kind of, here, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see this better. This almost feels kind of grip tapey, right? It feels like that thing that kind of paint you would put on on like a ladder in a moist environment, just to give yourself a little extra traction, right? It's got a little gritty feeling to it. Is it the end of the world? No, absolutely not. It's not tearing apart the hands or anything like that, but it just ends up feeling kind of like, not necessarily in love with it. And this is a knife that has a fair amount of gription to it already. I don't know that that was crucial. Is it a bad thing? No, but it's not something I really care for, right? And I think a version of this in smooth metal probably would end up being a little bit more compelling than the skateboard grip tape version that they've done here. So to me, at least, all that is the bad, is that the handle looks and feels a little bit just off. It's a very bricky thing with thick blade stock, kind of a weird balance to it, weird choil length here, and the price is up there, but I'm willing to give them a pass, given the D2 and given the FieldStrip thing. Final conclusion, this is weird. This is a knife that I actually sat down and I wrote up the review on, but then I thought to myself, I need to give this more time, because I just, my feelings are vacillating back and forth, because at some level it is quite nice, right? It's a nice smaller size. It's got surprisingly good ergos, given the look of it. It's got its ambi carry, it's got a nice blade, and a really exceptional feature in the form of FieldStrip too. The fact that I can take this knife apart one-handed is actually non-trivial, right? I mean, you can do that with any knife if you're really good, but I mean, that's certainly something, right? I appreciate that very much. It is also a little on the pricey side. There were a number of odd elements to the design with a strange balance, a thick boy build right here, a bricky kind of approach, and a texture that's just kind of there. Ultimately, I feel conflicted when I look at this knife. Not like my inner conflict or anything like that, but it's just like, I feel both ways. It's good. It is a nice tool, and I can see a class of people, particularly people who are dealing with interesting legal situations, like where they need a certain blade length or something like that, who are going to love this by virtue of the fact that it's got the FieldStrip thing, and by virtue of the fact that it is a functional design. Like, at the core, this is a knife that is not bad at all, right? At the core, it's got a lot of good to it going on here. But the thing is, there are still a bunch of things that aren't themselves bad, right? The balance isn't bad, the thick stock isn't bad, the brickiness isn't bad, and the handle isn't bad, but all of them together kind of add up to something that feels a little bit underwhelming, and especially when it dropped next to the Bonafide, which is another version of another knife with the FieldStrip too, which in a lot of ways just feels a little bit more refined, right? It's got a little bit more effort at a texturing here. It's got some smoothness to it. It's got the same sort of system, and it's a little nicer in the hand. To me, at least, the Bonafide ends up winning by a pretty good margin there, and so I think these two next to each other is interesting. And so ultimately, I go back and forth, right? It's a fine knife. I think it'll serve a number of people well. But the knife is interesting almost exclusively because of the FieldStrip thing. If this were a vanilla D2 liner lock at this price, absolutely not. But the FieldStrip thing is really cool. So I guess my conclusion on this guy, that is hard fought, so to speak, I carried this guy a fair amount, is that, if you're looking to just try the FieldStrip, if that's your goal, I'm probably going to send you to the FieldStrip too, that is. I'm going to send you to the Bonafide. I think this is just a slightly better knife in generally speaking. Whatever, it feels a little more polished, feels like a slightly better final product. But that said, I can picture somebody with a very specific set of requirements, likely for length, finding this guy pretty compelling. This is a nice option for CRKT to give people. CRKT. Wow, that's a new one. For CRKT to give to people, right? I think this is a cool little choice, and I think for a lot of folks, this might jump out at them. I kind of hope that we see more smaller FieldStrip knives in the future of different designs, different approaches, etc., or maybe even just more versions of this guy. I imagine with a little bit more polish to it, this could be pretty excellent. But ultimately, I guess my feeling is I like the FieldStrip tech, and the knife is fine, and it's going to be, up to your specific needs to see if you're going to give this little guy the Cottidae. It's like time of day. Look, it's Cottidae. You try and make a pun out of that, okay? Anyways, I hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful day. Oh, they could have sculpins the handle a little bit more because that's the name of the fish. Okay. Anyways, hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.